Okay, in this tutorial we are going to use Photoshop to cut out a picture from one photo and actually place it in another. It's a very common Photoshop technique, and we are going to use the Polygon Lasso for this particular effect. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to, first off, because of the fact that I want to manipulate this picture and edit it, I need to make a layer from it. Now, it's set as the background right now, so I'm going to right click, make a layer from background, and click OK. It's called layer 0. You can always double click on it and rename that layer. It's never a bad idea, but because of the fact that we're just going to be working with the one layer right now, I'm not really worried about it. Okay. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can do it. One, you can grab this entire picture and drag it up onto the other tab and drop it on there, and then delete from there. All right, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it the other way, but you can just as easily do the same thing either way. I'm going to zoom in, which is Control plus on your keyboard, Command plus if you're using a Mac, and I'm going to use the Polygon Lasso to erase. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. One, you can use the Polygon Lasso to cut the object out. But I'm gonna, just for the sake of, I was gonna say for the sake of simplicity, I was gonna do it the other way. Actually, I will go ahead and do it that way. The Polygon Lasso is located right here on your toolbar. If you click and hold, you're gonna see multiple tools. Okay, you see Lasso, Polygon Lasso, and Magnetic Lasso. Now the Magnetic Lasso, or well, let me go through the tools real quick. The Lasso, with the Lasso, what you have to do is you have to basically click and hold to draw and select your object. And if you'll notice, I'm drawing right here. Well, you've got to have a very steady hand, and it's really only used for certain features. So it's not very effective for what we're trying to do. Now you'll notice, so we're not going to use that tool. Now you'll notice I have something selected here that I really don't want. So I'm going to deselect with the keyboard shortcut Control D. So I've deselected that. Now I can start all over. Instead of the lasso tool, I can also use the magnetic lasso tool. What the magnetic lasso tool does is it attempts to grab hold of whatever it is that that you're dragging it around. So if I selected right there, you'll notice it did a pretty decent job of selecting those edges. It tries to find lines, it tries to find different features that it can attach itself to. But that doesn't work very well there. So if I were to try to use it right here, I just click and then drag over. Now you'll see it's good for some pictures when you have high contrast, but because of the fact that these colors don't really match, or these colors are kind of close right over here, it doesn't really work. When we get over to this white part, it works a lot better because there's a very high contrast between the darker colors here and the lighter colors here. So I don't want to use that tool. I'm going to Control D again. Now I'm going to use the Polygon Lasso. This is the most common tool that we'll use, or one of the most common tools. What this allows you to do is drop anchor points. So I'm clicking. I click, 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 click. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and outline this entire picture. And I just click and drop little anchor points, which are going to be what I'm cutting out. Okay, so this is probably going to take a minute or two. So you can either watch me do it, or you can just simply fast forward a little bit in the video. Okay, I'm not going to pause. I'm just going to sit here and cut everything out. So at this point, you can start fast forwarding, and if you fast forward and you see that I'm still doing it, well, just keep on fast forwarding. And one thing, just because of the fact that this is a simple tutorial, I am not doing the best job in the world. So I expect you to do a better job with it, because regardless of whether or not I do a quality job, you can still get the idea. Okay, so I am done. I have everything connected. I've gone back basically and I've circled everything up. So I've made a complete circle, well, not a circle, but I've connected my beginning and ending points. So now if you look, you should see that it's highlighted. Now what I want to do is I want to copy and paste. I'm going to make a copy of what I have highlighted. So I'm going to Control C. That made a copy of it. And now I'm going to Control V. Now when I Control V, if you look right over here, you'll see that I now have two layers. And if you look really closely, you'll see that this is a full layer, whereas this one is the outline layer. So what I'm going to do now is select my arrow tool. And if I select either layer, you'll see that there are two different layers. Now, you'll notice the little eyeball right here. If I turn off this top layer, you're not going to notice any change because I just copied the Jeep and pasted it, so I actually have a second one. But if I turn off this bottom layer, you'll see that it's now gone because what I've done is I've made a copy of it. All right. And now I'm going to zoom back out, Control minus, and you'll see the Jeep right there, and it's cut out and it's ready to go. All right, I'm going to grab it, and yes, I know it's not the best job of cutting something out. I expect you guys to do a better job with it, but for the sake of a quick example in a tutorial, this is pretty good. So I'm going to grab this Jeep, and I'm going to drag it on and put it onto my background. So there it is. All right. Now, when I'm on here, I want to make sure that I have my transform controls on, which you can see right there. And if they're not on, come up here and click. And then we can spin it if we need to. Okay, to make sure it looks even. We can resize it. When you resize something, you can use these handles right here. But make sure to hold your shift key, otherwise it ends up looking like that. Okay, so I want to undo that, so I'm going to Control Z. Hold my shift key if I needed to resize it, and I can make it larger or smaller. Now if we make it too large, it's going to start getting grainy and it's not going to look good. So, but we can go ahead and make it a little bit larger. Hit enter once we've resized it if we want to. Hit enter to basically to make it kind of fit in, and then we drop it wherever we want to be. And this is kind of just an artistic choice. You decide, does it look good right there? And personally, I don't think that it does. I'm going to make it maybe a little bit smaller and see where we can place it. So what we've got now is we have, oops, let me undo that, Control Z. And we have our Jeep kind of right here in this area, all right? We can turn it if we realize, it should be turned a little bit. And there you go. Now you'll notice that we do have two layers here. We have our background layer. We have layer 1, which I'm going to double click and rename Jeep. So now we have both of our layers. We have our background and we have our Jeep. Now it's not the best job in the world. When you guys do this, I want you to take your time and really try to cut it out well and go ahead and place this Jeep on the background. And that, folks, is how you use the Polygon Lasso tool. So go ahead, download the two files from the LMS and open them both in Photoshop and attempt this yourself.